Hi, and welcome again to Ask Miss Jones. How are you doing? I hope you're doing as good as I think you are. So as always, there have been questions and I'm processing to see which ones we should do. And today I want to share with you in response to a question on how to manage conflicts within families. And as I was thinking about this, I cast my mind back to my childhood days. I have 12 brothers and sisters, and they all rock. Life was fun. I reflected and I realized that up until I was 16, I do not recall hearing my parents raise their voices at each other. It signified for me the importance of having a peaceful environment in which to raise my children. So when my husband and I got married, before we even got married, we entered a pact that we were not going to go to bed with any unresolved issues. Now, when we said that, it looked like, oh, this would be the thing to do. But eventually you realize it is a challenge, but because we're committed to doing that, and for the benefit of raising sound, secure children, we decided that this is what we're going to be doing. And thank God, 26 plus years later, it is working. So I recommend this to you as something that works from my experience. Now I want to look at it from how to resolve conflict between spouses, even in-laws and children and siblings, all of those. So we're just looking at the family for what it's worth. So one way that I have chosen to look at conflict is to put it in context of the overall good. So for example, if my husband and I have a difference of opinion on a matter, what is more important to me is not whose side takes preeminence, it's what is good for the family. And if you're able to dial back and look at what is beneficial to everybody, then it's easier to say, okay, let's talk about this logically. So if, for example, we have a conflict around, there was one that my children didn't like. I don't know if I should use that example. If two children were quarreling over a toy for argument's sake, it's easy to say, just give it to that person. In that case, that would not be conflict that was resolved. It would be that you've deprived somebody to make somebody else happy. So when you look at the bigger good is that you want your children to be happy to play together. So we want to have the conversation around, okay, what is the issue here? This person has my toy. Do you need it right now? Can you both share? Can you take turns to play with this toy? Would everybody have a better outcome if this is engaged, if we engage around this as an activity that is beneficial to everybody? If we have that viewpoint, it's easy to look at issues rather than the person. And if you don't take it personally, then it's a lot easier to manage conflict. So one is to make a decision. Who benefits? What does this mean for the family? So I know that some younger women of African descent have asked questions around how to navigate issues concerning their in-laws. My response with managing conflict is, my husband's family is now my family. So I don't even look at them as in-laws. They are my family. He sees my family as his. So if anything happens, we want to look at what is best for the family. Chances are we don't talk to everybody about every issue. So in every family, there will be the person who can mediate, who can bring everybody to the table and say, what is it that we need to talk about? Why are you feeling this way? Who needs to do what? But ultimately, if you look at the bigger picture, then it's easier to apologize, to allow things rest, and to move on. However, there are occasions where conflicts are not necessarily resolved, they're just let go. And that I don't always recommend, because after a while, you're going to find that some resentment will build from the fact that you didn't deal with that conflict. And because we're looking at the family structure and the well-being of the family and how it works, it's important that we don't brush things aside and say, it doesn't matter, because it will matter when you don't want it to. So for for families to navigate and manage conflicts effectively, it helps to spell out what the issues are. How does this affect us as a family? How does it benefit us? So if ultimately the resolution is better for my family, then how I feel no longer matters. We are making decisions based on the family's best interest. What I have experienced is if I put the family first and my husband puts the family first, suddenly this thing that we thought was a problem is no longer a problem, because we're now seeing what is there that is good for all of us. And if we can learn to look at conflict holistically, then it becomes easier to manage. Communication is another very key factor. And for some of the young women who've reached out to me about this issue, they feel that they may not exactly say how they feel in a way that their spouses will understand. And to that I say, it helps for me. I don't speak when I'm angry, because it will never come out the way I intended it to come out. So in managing conflicts within the family, we want to look at when to respond, how to respond, to whom to respond, and the big why. What is the reason? If this is for the family's benefit, then I can let everything that I'm feeling go to rest, because this thing that we're going to agree on working with will be of benefit to the entire family. Just out of interest, a few years ago, when I was still commuting about a 2-hour drive to work and back, and it was really very tasking. But my husband and I had decided that having relocated from Jamaica to Canada, we're not going to uproot our children again from Whitby to Hamilton, because that's where I found the job. So what was the decision? I would make the sacrifice and commute so that my children could remain in their school. So that's one example of making decisions that benefit the family. Sometimes it takes its toll on one, but because we can have the conversation as a family and make decisions as a family, everybody's sacrifice is known, everybody's understanding is solicited, and when anything that would otherwise be called conflict comes up, we're able to say, hey, let's talk about this. And because we have the overall good of the family at heart, it works. So what is it that we need to resolve conflict in families? We need to have understanding. We need to be willing to communicate respectfully from the point of view of what is right and beneficial rather than who is right. If we want to insist on who is right, chances are it will never be resolved, because everybody will hold their corners. So we want to look at what is best for the family. I also want to encourage all of you, involve your children. Even when our children were very, very young, we involve them in decisions that affect all of us. So once when we were, my oldest son was very, very young. Daddy and I were enjoying a very hearty game of football, and he thought we were quarreling and started crying. And that established for me that because children may not always articulate what they feel, it's important that what we are showing them, what we are allowing them into, is safe and comfortable for them to be able to express themselves. So when we think of raising a well-balanced family, we want to be sure that we give our children the opportunity to get the best of us, that I give my husband the best of me, that I hold back nothing, and I don't begrudge when things don't go my way. Why? Because we are looking at the good of the family. So like I said, for those young women who had asked me about relationships with their in-laws, I think it helps to remember that love conquers all. So if you love your spouse, you will love his family, and you will speak to him respectfully on every matter. And because love always conquers, and you're speaking from a place of love, you will not hurt. So if there's a problem, an issue to be resolved, it will be handled with respect, it will be handled with discretion, and love will still cement it all. So communication, awareness of the overall good, and how that must always be paramount. Not who is wrong, but what is right and what will be of benefit to the overall. And we want to look at relationships in multiple ways. What works between spouses, what works between parents and children, what works between siblings, among siblings, what works, so just if we just have at the back of our minds that we're looking at the overall good, it becomes very easy to manage conflict. Again, I want to encourage you, do not say, oh well, I don't care, nothing's going to matter. Do not sweep things under the carpet. It will pop up when you don't want it to. So communication is key, and I know that I've said to some of those who had asked, if you want ideas as to how to start conversations around conflict, be sure to reach out to me. So you can leave your comments below or send me an email to askmissjudes@gmail.com, and I'll be very happy to work with you to navigate some of these issues. Also, because there are cultural nuances to navigating these issues, I'm really offering you free. You know that we're working anyway on this. Send me an email and I'll be glad to work with you to get those very, very well organized. Thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And I look forward to coming to you again real soon. Cool. Take care. God bless you.
Cool.
Bye. On thriving in spite of challenges. I think by nature, the human being is made to thrive.